Hello, Central New York, and hello, hockey fans all across the internet, and welcome to the Central New York Hockey Report podcast right here on the Studio 25 Podcast Network. I am your host, Scott Kinville, and what a time to be a hockey fan in Central New York. Central New York has 3 teams going into the men's D3 tournament starting this weekend, and guess what, folks? That's what we're going to talk about today because, like I said, so exciting. You just can't go wrong if you're a hockey fan in Central New York. To talk about that with us, of course, as you can see on your screen if you're watching on YouTube, we've got a panel going on today. And, of course, before we get into our panel, to my right, naturally, sitting there with his hat on, he's ready to go, got that big smile on his face.
I forgot the hat the last couple of times.
I know.
Yeah,
I was so proud of you that you remembered this time.
I dusted it off, and it's on, We dealt with your head shine earlier today on another show. So,
yes,
yeah.
I didn't have my hat. And we had to adjust the lighting because it was...
Yeah, we did. Get those bounce reflectors going.
Yeah, it was like that Pink Floyd album, Dark Side of the Moon.
Good Lord, yes. Oh, God.
Oh, boy. But anyways, here to help us discuss these teams going into the tournament. First of all, our faithful co-host over there, he's got his unique hat on there. Mr. Jordan Brockway. Jordy, what's going on?
Nothing much. Just trying not to go crazy before the games actually happen.
Well, I just want to make sure that your internet connection stays because, as we talked about a couple shows ago, our drinking game still stands. And if you're new to it, what happens is every time Jordan's internet goes out and you see his screen disappear or his audio go out, take a drink. And if you were here for like 3 shows ago, you would have been hammered by the time the half hour was over with because that poor guy just could not stay on the air to save his life. So, so don't worry, Jordy, we got you. And here to help us discuss this D3 tournament, who else would we have on but the walking human encyclopedia of D3 hockey, Mr. Chris Sugar of D3 Hockey News. Chris, thank you for coming on.
It's always fun, Scott. It's always fun.
It is. It's always a blast. It really is. And, before we get into the games, of course, Chris, you got the broadcaster tournament going on. Love it every year. How's it looking?
Pretty good. I mean, obviously bringing in, I had to kind of figure out a way, which wasn't that hard. It was just a debate on whether to have it on sort of the website with voting or Instagram and Twitter. So do it up on both of them. It's doing pretty good. With exits, I wanted to kind of expand it just from that. So obviously the Instagram, it's been going good. We have our final 4, which is Buffalo State in my region, Plymouth State in your region, who just had the closest victory of 4 votes. And
we set a record.
River Falls, correct. River Falls up in the upper right corner, and we have Stevens Point in the D3 photography region. So it's looking fun. It's fun every year, so just kind of a good way to expand it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, instead of broadcasters, why don't we talk about some actual hockey here? Because, again, the most exciting, wonderful time of the year is tournament time.
I'm going to put Christmas music on.
You should. That's all I can think about every time I start talking like that.
Yeah, you always do that.
Yeah, maybe you and I could be. Remember that movie Big, where they were dancing on the piano?
No.
You don't remember that?
No.
Watch the movie Big sometime.
Okay.
And when Tom Hanks and Robert Loggia are in the Toy Story, you'll see what I'm talking about.
All right.
Anyways, first of all, like I said, 3 teams in this region in this tournament. So we got Utica, Hamilton, and Oswego all made it. So we're going to start off with Utica because they're the highest ranked of the 3. And they will be playing home this Saturday at 1 o'clock at the Adirondack Bank Center. They're hosting the Fitchburg State Falcons. So the Pioneers came in on an at-large bid. They lost in the UCHC championship on Saturday. All 3 of us were there for that game. I'm sure Pioneer Nation would rather forget about that game. It was just a bump in the road. Did not work out their way. But they do get a home game out of it anyway against Fitchburg State. So, Chris, they are the winners of the MASCAC tournament. Tell us a little bit about these guys.
They have a couple transfers. I mean, I know that 1 or 2 from St. Scholastica. I think that had to play with a little bit of why they, might have done a little better this year. I mean, granted, Plymouth State and Anna Maria got taken out by MCLA, which I don't think Fitchburg gets by them if that doesn't occur. But, I mean, regardless, Fitchburg, they're the team that made it through. They're in. They're kind of a wild card. I mean, they played Superior earlier in the year. Superior beat them. That'd probably be the best team they played. I don't really think it shouldn't be a challenge for Utica. I mean, it's a 1 p.m. game on a Saturday, so if they're going to lose, this would be the one to do it. Just a random 1 p.m. game on a Saturday. So Fitchburg's playing with house money. Utica's not. There's really not much to be said about it, just because it's another team that they've took advantage of the conference and they're in. It's a weak conference and they're in.
Yeah,
that's about it.
And by the way, we do have a very beautiful graphic courtesy of D3 Hockey News. I almost forgot to have Dave put that out. There it is. There is your tournament bracket right there.
Slightly better than the pale gray.
My goodness, I know. You know what? They should have just contracted with you. The NCAA should have. They really should.
Yeah, well, I would have spelled Plattsburgh correctly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have called Norbert the Bulldogs, which is like calling Duke the Tar Heels.
I know.
And I wouldn't have called it the MEAC. It's the MIAC. Like, I don't.
Yeah, that was kind of a whole. That rollout was just a comedy of errors.
Yep.
I mean, the bracket was great. It made everybody forget it. Honestly, all the negatives.
Yeah.
But
true. But so, Jordy, I'm going to come over to you. So, like I said, all three of us were at that UCHC game. Again, not the best night if you're the Pioneers. But you know what, though? Honestly, I think this actually works out pretty good for them. They're still at home with an at-large bid. And like Chris just said, they're getting Fitchburg State, who, I mean, they're 13-12-1 this season. So, 15. I wrote that down wrong. You're correct. So, I mean, really, not such a bad deal.
Yeah, and watching that game, I mean, Piros did not play a good game. When he plays Geneseo, all of a sudden, he falls apart. It's been the last two games, and props to Sturtsy for stepping in and stepping up. But you'll probably see Piros again against Fitchburg, and hopefully he'll go back to his normal form.
Oh, drink number one.
Drink number one.
There it goes.
Woo-hoo.
Well, I guess I'll finish this thought for him. Yeah. So, you obviously hope that Ryan Piros goes back to his form that he's had since he's come over to Utica in this second half of the season. Honestly, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt from the last game. I mean, every goaltender has a bad game. So, obviously, if you're Utica, you got to forget about it. But, here's the thing, Chris. Coach Heenan once said to me, he was like, you know what? When they get those first-round buys, he actually doesn't like it. Because he says those 2 weeks off, that's really tough to stay focused. Obviously, you have a lot of extra preparation time, or if you have nagging injuries to take care of, that's great. But you know what? I think this was probably the best-case scenario for the Pioneers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different this year. They didn't have to play, it's no disrespect to other teams, but they're not playing a lower-tier opponent in the final. I mean, you get Geneseo. You played them 4 times this year. It's kind of different in the sense that Utica wasn't dealing with that issue of, okay, we play absolutely nobody on after Thanksgiving.
Right.
And then we're going to be in the tournament. It's like you played Geneseo. So, I mean, even if you get the 2 weeks off, it's like, yeah, it's a break. I mean, but I think it's a different scenario where you're playing it's not as if you haven't played a Geneseo caliber team or whoever in a month and a half. So, there's a 2 week break, but in reality, it was more like a 2 month break because, again, it's like no disrespect to anybody, but I mean, out shooting a team 80-20 isn't really going to do you much. It's like the game's over. So it's like, I mean, they had a couple scares with Alvernia. I remember that, but I mean, besides that, it's like they're still dominating the game. I mean, that's just not going to happen once you get to this level of the tournament. Except I do think Fitchburg State on paper they should beat them fairly easily. Granted, I think Fitchburg will put up a fight. They're playing with house money, and it's a 1 p.m. game on a Saturday. It's a weird time. I mean, it's not like your primetime game.
Yeah, I believe the Comets are in town Saturday night, so I think that's why they had to move that game to 1. But I'm looking at Fitchburg State, and I'm looking at their individual stats. These guys can score. I mean, they've got 6 players with 20 or more points. So I don't think this is going to be just a rollover game for them. I think you're right, Chris. I think Fitchburg will put up a fight. But I mean, and I don't want to call it a tune-up game because it's not. You're in the NCAAs. You're not in a tune-up mode, right? At least you shouldn't be. But again, the Pioneers can score with anybody. As we're looking at their individual stats over here right now, I mean, Jacob Burrow's got 32 points to lead the team. They too have 6 players with 20 points or more. So on paper, yeah, could it be a close game? Sure. But again, this is like I said, best case scenario possible for the Pioneers.
I would just be more mad if they blow it and then St. Norbert wins and we don't get a St. Norbert Utica. I want I want that game more than anything. I honestly am more excited for that game than the Final Four or the title. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want St. Norbert at Utica.
Yeah, I was
more than I want the title.
I was just going to. Dave, put that graphic back up real quick, if you would. I just wanted to kind of point that out because yes, that was where we were going next. So yeah, St. Norbert should win their game. I mean, there's no. Again, this is one of those.
Granted, the MIAC Gustavus is a way better opponent than Fitchburg State. That's Gustavus is not a rollover team.
Sure.
The MIAC could pull that. I could pull that off. But St. Norbert to me is the best team of this field.
Right. I mean, but that's like I said with that situation, and St. Norbert's had one heck of a year themselves. So that would be such a fun game to see. St. Norbert and Utica. Oh, sign me up.
Correct. Especially the odd because you'll sell it out. I mean, Norbert, they've had issues with attendance. I don't know what it is, but they're getting their new rink next year, though. It'll up that. Obviously, people want to see it, but Norbert and Utica in the odd. I mean, Tim Coughlin coming to town it's just fun. Like I joked earlier, like I haven't been that excited for like a D3 game since the 2014 SUNYAC semifinals of Plattsburgh and Oswego.
Yeah.
I think Plattsburgh was 1-2, and then Oswego was like top 5 or whatever. So it's just fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I saw on your socials today, you were talking about potential Final Four spots. So, I mean, and you said that Utica is probably the best of what could potentially be available. So I think you're right with the seating capacity. You're definitely going to sell out. So I don't want to put the cart before the horse because I've done that before and I've gotten in big trouble for it. So,
yeah, I mean,
so maybe I'm the one who should have internet problems, and maybe I'm the one that should.
No, then it would be on me. No.
Yeah, because Curry, they have a great facility. The capacity is really not there. I mean, the facility's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just they don't have the seating. They're not going to host. Hobart will fight to the death to host because that's what they always do. But unfortunately, they play in like one of the worst rinks. They love it because people hate going there. But it's you can't host a Final Four there. Like your visiting locker room is a concrete block. It doesn't fit an entire team. You can't. There's nothing there. Like I don't mean to sound like this pompous whatever, but like there's nothing there to host it. They don't have the facilities. They don't have the capacity. Where are you going to put it? I mean,
yeah,
like it's
exactly.
You just can't do it. So,
no, I agree. So, like I said, let's hope to see a Final Four right here in Central New York. That would be awesome. So let's move on to the Hamilton College Continentals. What an exciting weekend for them. They hosted the semifinals and the championship of the NESCAC, and they won it all. Very exciting. Like I said, I was at both games there. Impressed by what I saw. Then, I'm obviously impressed all season. They've gone 26-1. What a leap forward for the Continentals from last season. Coach Haberbush and everybody up there has done a great job. Selection Monday came around, and we kind of thought that they might be able to host a game in the first round, and the selection committee said, no, you're going to UNE. So, Chris, I'm going to go to you. Of course, anybody here in Central New York is very, very familiar with the Nor'easters. Tell us a little bit about them this year.
UNE, it's surprising they lost 7 games. I mean, it's just kind of, you see them play, and they're extremely fast. I mean, like even with Utica, I mean, when you saw them play, it's like they just play so quick, and it's like seeing them in Utica in person. That was one time I got to see them this year, obviously, because they're up in Maine, but they're electric. Like they have good goaltending. Obviously that night, both goaltenders weren't exactly on it when Utica and UNE had played, but no, seeing UNE play, they're very fast. Kevin Swallow, he's always going to have a good team. Like he built up Nichols when they were kind of not really much. He leaves. Now they're not really much. He goes to UNE, who really hadn't made a name for themselves, I should say. And now they've made 2 Frozen Fours in a handful of years, and they have a good draw here. I mean, Hamilton, it's like no disrespect to Hamilton, but UNE, they're no worse than them. They're no better than them. I mean, it's a toss-up game, and it's at home. And then they get a conference opponent in the next round. So it's not like they're not familiar. They can't beat Curry. I mean, it's hard to beat a team.
Right.
Now it would be, I believe, I think they'd have to beat them for the 4th time. So mean, I think they got a good draw relatively out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's definitely a good draw. I just personally, I kind of felt with Hamilton winning their tournament, whereas UNE did not. I thought that might carry a little more weight, but I also understand, Hamilton had a little bit of a turbulence there in February, and like I said when we talked about, because the coach was just on our podcast, and that's when it all started happening. So, but anyways, they recovered very nicely. But Jordy, what's your thought on the Continentals this season?
Well, the Continentals have been great. We've talked about it before. They're a very defensive team. They don't score a ton, but they're not going to give up a ton, and you kind of saw that in the tournament. I mean, they let up nothing, and they score 3+ each game. So they kind of found offense when they needed to, and when they didn't, they just did their thing, and it worked them through the tournament.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I'll tell you, Charlie Archer, their senior goaltender, has been lights out all season long. So, I mean, to be honest with you, with him and net, I mean, they've got a puncher's chance against anybody they play. Looking at the individual stats here real quick. So, with UNE, I mean, they've got a big top three here. It looks like Drew Olivari, Ryan Kuzmich, and Dominic Murphy. 35, 34, and 34 points-wise. And then it kind of tapers down below 20 after that. And then, of course, on the Hamilton end, you got Luke Shore, who's a game breaker in himself and the reigning NESCAC Player of the Year. So, I got to tell you something. This game is going to be a fun one to watch.
Yep, 2 beers.
There it is. He froze again. Oh, boy. But, yeah, and Chris, I guess, looking at the Nor'easters goaltending, it looks like it's pretty much an even split here. Let's see. Stephen Carney played 14 games, as did Jody, and I hope I'm saying this staying easy. So good goaltenders that have really good seasons. Not quite as good as Archer, but, I mean, Coach Paul is going to have a choice to make who he wants to start in net.
I think he'll go with Stanizzi if I had to take a guess. That's just me going off on a limb. I think he'll get the go. No, I mean, that game's kind of weird because it's UNE. I'm not saying they have poor defense. They don't have poor goaltending. Obviously, they have good goaltending, as we just said. But, Hamilton, like you guys talked about, known for the defense, UNE, the exact opposite. So it's one of those fun games where, does defense win a championship or does, possibly scoring 5 or 6, get it done for you?
Yeah, exactly. And, of course, the winner of that gets Curry. So, I mean, as it does in tournament time, it doesn't get any easier as you advance, and especially up in that bracket because, Curry's just been another one of those outstanding teams this year, number 1 seed in their bracket. I believe they got 6 votes in the D3 Hockey News poll for first place, right, Chris?
The other week they had something like that. Yeah, this week in the USCHO they only had 3, which I don't understand, but, have at it. So,
yeah. Well, like I said, that's what makes it fun. That's why we love this thing we call D3 hockey. I'll tell you what, guys, why don't we take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to talk some Oswego State Lakers hockey. So we'll be right back.
Visit the Daily Post and stay connected with the latest news, information, and events in the Mohawk Valley. Our mission is to generate interest in the area and connect residents in a more meaningful way by facilitating deeper conversations about how these stories will shape the future of the Mohawk Valley. Join thousands of weekly visitors who stay up to date with feature stories, interviews, videos, our event calendar, and print publication, the Mohawk Valley Express. It's about timely local news for the community, keeping citizens informed about important issues, telling about the people who live and work here, and giving locally owned businesses the opportunity to reach a very targeted audience of locals and tourists alike. It's a whole new form of media-rich content developed specifically for today's mobile lifestyle and listeners. You can download our iOS app in the iTunes Store, listen to our podcast, or sign up for our weekly email newsletter. Stop by today at thedailypost.digital. You'll be glad you did.
And we're back. Chris, did you notice we have a new commercial?
I did. The music, I believe it stayed the same.
I insisted on that.
He insisted on that, yeah.
It is a very dynamic, music for a very quiet place. I'll say that.
I like that.
What a there's the movie reference.
How ironic, exactly.
I'll keep it on there. I mean, it's like I said, it's like watching a movie from like, I want to say like Little House on the Prairie, but you see some of these like black and white photos and it just kind of brings you back.
Yeah. And you know what? Now, Dave, we have to come up with a short like drinking video for Jordy now because he's up to 2 already.
Yep.
So
I will take care of that.
All right. So the third and final team from Central New York to get into the D3 tournament, Oswego State. Before we start talking about the men, though, Chris, I want to go back to the women a little bit because I got to tell you, man, I feel so bad for them. There's no other way to say it. I'm just going to come around. They got screwed. They really did.
Yeah, well, you know, if you look at the comment section of my bracket, you can hear their thoughts on it. Yeah, I think the MPI for the most part, like, I'm not a complete hater of it. I think it did pretty. Pairwise never really did bad for the men. I don't think. Like Grant, do I think it was perfect? No, but I like MPI for the men. I don't think if anybody complains about it this year, they can go shove it because we got the best bracket we pretty much ever had. With the women, honestly, I don't hate it either. Granted, of who won, I mean, the bracket I don't mind, except for I don't really like how they're going to narrow the West in some ways. But besides that, I do think it is funny though that if Elmira wins 2 games, they'll just stay in Wisconsin for 2 weeks. But that's besides the point. But no, with Colby, like, look, they already hate me, so I don't really care. But they have it in their head that I have it personally. What it's like, unfortunately, you're the team that is benefiting every single time when you probably shouldn't. Like, you play less games. Everybody complains about Oswego's non-conference. Well, if we look at Colby's non-conference, for example, they played apparently terrible Potsdam because they play in the SUNYAC. So they played them. They also played Suffolk. They played, I have to check on it. At Castleton. They also played Castleton, another dominant opponent who I don't think was over 500. Meanwhile, with Oswego, you play Amherst, who should be worth about 10x everybody else because they're in the NESCAC. Hamilton, a win over them should be worth about, I'd say 7 or 8 because they're in the NESCAC too. And then Manhattanville, it's a game that I believe was set up because somebody knows somebody. Again, it's a good pair of games. It's not bad at all. Like we can have fun in this sport. And granted, if they ended up playing, let's say Adrian twice, and let's say they lose to Adrian twice, or they split with them, they're going to get credited with a home loss, which is worse than I would say 2 home wins against a lower opponent. And Adrian's strength of schedule was so bad because they played in the West, and for some reason they don't get crossover play, and the numbers can't factor in. I don't even know if the win with Adrian would have mattered or the loss. So at the end of the day, it's set up in a way where, look, Colby, they benefit. I mean, hats off to them. Hopefully, look, have at it. You're in the tournament now, but you got in over Cortland twice, won by, I believe it was 1,000% after losing in the quarterfinal, by the way. Can't forget about that of their tournament. And then they're going to get Wilkes, and likely they're going to win the game because they're playing the winner of the lowest rated conference. No disrespect to Wilkes, but that's statistically they get we tell St. Norbert, hey, St. Norbert, you won the NCHA. Have Gustavus.
Yeah, right.
Who won the title 2 years ago and made it to the Final Four the past, the only reason they didn't was because they ran into River, who won the title. And now we're going to, and hey, Colby, you lost in the semifinals. We'll give you Wilkes. And you get to host him as well, by the way. And then if you win that, you get to play a conference opponent that you're extremely familiar with that you beat twice in the season. So, it's like you're rewarding like poor play. Like you lost in the semifinals. You were against a good team, granted, but you haven't won 20 games, I don't think ever. Like, and again, you can play at a good conference, but it's like the same gripe I had with Hamilton a couple years ago. In their conference, they went 6-5-5. If St. Norbert and the men's NCHA went 6-5-5 in their conference, I don't think they're making the tournament.
Right. Right.
So, I just the same thing with Adrian. I don't think Adrian's making the tournament if they barely go 500 in their conference. So it's one of those things where Oswego, they did all they could, I think, in my opinion. Now every you know, in my opinion, idiot is going to say, well, you should have just won on Saturday. Okay. So you could say the same thing to Colby. You should have just won.
Right.
Like, you didn't get it. At that point, you could say that about anybody. So I think it's a lazy argument or a lazy just statement. Like, oh, should have just won. Okay, well, the world, it should be 85 and sunny.
Right.
With no, I can be teeing off on hole 13 right now. But,
instead of you're screwing with me.
But it's not. I had to work. I have school. I have this lovely show, and I'm not teeing off right now. So, like, it's a lazy argument. Oswego, their only lot. I'll finish with this. They won 22 games. Their two losses were to the number 6 team in Plattsburgh, which they beat once. Their other loss was to, I believe, number 2 Amherst, who, again, I mean, losing to them should be considered a win against Manhattanville, apparently. Their ties were against Plattsburgh, the number 6 team, and Cortland, the number 12 team. So their worst loss was to the number 6 team, and their worst tie was to number 12. And I don't see a world where this doesn't show that the NESCAC properly does it. They play a terrible non-conference outside of Middlebury and Hamilton, and nobody cares until it happens to you. Because I guarantee Coach Digby, all respect to him, love the guy, I guarantee he didn't have this much anger when Cortland got left out twice. And I guarantee all these other teams didn't have this anger when this was happening to Cortland and others. But it happens to them. So there you go. That it's nobody like this is it needs to happen to a big brand to have something matter. And it's unfortunate, but Oswego is a bigger brand than Cortland, and it needs to happen. So that's my piece. Have at it. This is probably the only place it'll be said. So there you go.
Oh, we get an exclusive.
Oh,
correct, because I've already said it. So we can, have at it, and So that's about all I got for you.
You know how you fix that problem? You make the tournament 14 teams, just like the men.
And again, that's if you made it 14, then you're always going to have the 15th team complaint. But at some point,
it's still at least
right. At 14, it makes sense. I don't know. All I know is it's like it's so glare. There's a reason every single year. Like, we don't just hate the bracket to hate the bracket. The men's bracket's the best we've ever got. Like it is. I mean, but the women's bracket last year, my posting the women's bracket had the highest interaction rate of any post, I believe, probably in D3 history. It had over 250,000 on Twitter. It had over a couple 100,000 on Instagram. Name me another post that's had that. I don't think there's many.
Probably not.
It's because it was that bad. And the same thing this year. There's a reason everybody's complaining. Like, why nobody's complaining about the men's bracket unless you're just irrational and hate good things. But
I'm sure if you comb the internet hard enough, you will find that.
No, there has been a few people, and it's like, just shut up before they go back.
Yeah, like, before they change their minds.
Like, I get it. Some conference winners want home games. I get it. But if it means I can get Norbert at Utica, I'll take it. If it means I could get like Trine and Oswego, I will take it. That's
right. Right.
That's my piece.
Well, that's a perfect segue because that's who we're going to talk about right now. But you're just made for this, Chris. You know that. Oswego and Trine. Let's talk about that. So the Lakers, the very young Laker team, really has come on at the end of the season, and they won the SUNYAC championship. They beat Plattsburgh 5-2 last Saturday. They're going to get Trine. They're going to be on the road. They got a long trip out to Indiana to play it's Angola, Indiana, I believe, actually. The Thunder Arena. I looked it up. I was like, wow, that is cool. The Trine Thunder Arena. I like it. Trine 26-2. They're ranked 7th in the country, both polls, yours and USCHO. So, Chris, a little bit about Trine.
Trine's they have one of the nicest locker rooms that they hadn't really shown anybody. It's kind of like a Skidmore replica. Not a replica, but the same kind of setup with the NHL style, like seating and the logo up top on the ceiling. But no, it's a whole 22 miles outside of the 500-mile limit, which I it's pretty much the equivalent of them going to Adrian, honestly. It's a little longer of a drive just because the road you have to take to get to it. But in terms of the mileage, it's pretty much Adrian, except you just stay on the turnpike a little longer and you head south instead of just hopping off and head north. It's a fun matchup. I mean, they've been building every year. You see them getting a little closer, kind of like Aurora, except that I believe they kind of a down year last year, Aurora, but they've built it the right way. I mean, they've been building. The school invests in their athletics. It's one of those where you kind of shake your head at how the women's team is as bad as they've been, just because with the amount they invest in their athletics, you would think that, they'd at least be, I don't want to say decent, but I mean, better than like a couple wins a year. But the men's team now, they've always been a tough out, but now they're really picking it up. Alex Todd, he was at Utica for a bit, so there you go. But no, he's familiar, obviously, with Oswego. I mean, being where he's from and what he's done. So I'm excited to see that when Oswego's playing with house money, 22 new players. I mean, they got a benefit with Plattsburgh shocking Cortland. I don't think Oswego is going to go down to Cortland and beat them with the way Cortland have been playing. But granted, again, it's kind of like Fitchburg, like not comparing the two teams by any means, but MCLA shocks a couple teams, Fitchburg gets in. Like Plattsburgh was hurt all year. They lost some players mid-season. They had a rough year, and Oswego gets to benefit from it, and good on them. They're in the tournament, or they won the SUNYAC, which I can't believe I'm saying this the first time since 2014, which
it is hard to believe. It's really hard to believe.
After Geneseo went on their tear, and then Plattsburgh kind of got back there. But yeah, it's a fun game. I think it's trying. They play heavy. They're older. At Oswego, it's kind of the opposite. So yeah, I'm glad that we do get to see an Oswego try, and I think it's not that Hamilton Oswego wouldn't have been good, but I just think it's more entertaining. I just like crossover play.
Honestly. Oh yeah, it's something you haven't seen, and just for trying the 3.5 goals per game this season, they're giving up 2.1. Jordan, you were just up in Oswego a couple weeks ago. What'd you see out of the Lakers?
A lot of good things. Obviously, like it's been said, they are playing with house money. They're running past their expectations, and in a way that reminds me of Utica last year, where they get a lot of new guys. They take those expectations, they shatter them and go, where can we go now? Because there's no limit. And they're doing that now. Milberg's holding up in that. Watching him all year, I've kind of gave props where it's due, even though it's a different local team. I've been very high on him since I saw him the first time here, and since then he's continued to get better and better. And that showed in the playoffs. When they play Buffalo State, they finally get over that hump and win. And then they play Plattsburgh, they get over the hump and win. And he lets in 2 a game in both of those games. And he's holding that net down. And with the guys in front of him that are scoring at very good rates, you don't need to be that great of a goalie, but he is anyways. And he's helping pull that team to the playoffs.
Yeah, and congratulations on making it through a segment without losing your. Everybody who's playing the drinking games would be rather disappointed, but that's okay.
Segment's not done yet.
Yeah,
be careful.
Yep.
No, I'm kidding. But those are great points. Oswego, they're scoring 4.4 goals per game. Their power play 32.3. They have been lethal on the power play, and I tell you, got to give credit to the coaching staff up there. Having that many new players, that many young players, and to pull them together. Of course, there was going to be bumps in the road, naturally, with the team that young. But they've got them playing. They got them firing on all cylinders at the right time of the year. And I don't think it's inconceivable that they can go out to try and win this game, because, and especially you see that a lot with young teams. They're so excited, and this is the big time, the new thing for them. That they sometimes do perform, just as well as they have been. So I think this is going to be a really good game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it seems like not. Oh, you're going out to? I don't want to.
No, you can go.
All right. No, I was just going to say, like, it seems Oswego, they kind of went with the whole, Utica and Oswego have possibly dropped off the idea of let's just get every old individual we can get that's D1 and has some stats and possibly egos and some issues, and then it turns out that you're an amazing hockey team, like because but that's the truth. Like, I mean, he didn't talk about it. He's said, I mean, you get egos and you get the wrong guys in there. Same thing with Oswego. Like, they had a lot of problems, and now it's cleaned out pretty much for the most part. I mean, you had a lot of guys leave. There's a reason you have, I think it's like 16 or 18 guys who are seniors or fifth years, and you're hardly, I mean, you're losing games that's just inconceivable. There's a reason that happened. So, I mean, no, they're rolling. Like, the early part of the season, I think they fared pretty well for the most part, considering what their schedule was. Now, granted, Plattsburgh didn't turn out to be what we thought they would, so we can kind of write that off as a little bit of a, not as good of a win as it would have looked.
Okay.
But I mean, Adrian, I mean, they played them close. They played Hobart close. They were a whole new team, and Hobart wasn't when they played them. So, I mean, I kind of like whoever comes out of that game. I think either of them will beat Hobart, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I think it'll play them close. Like, I think Oswego, granted, I think Trine matches up better, but I don't see it wouldn't surprise me at all if Oswego goes to beat Hobart. I mean, currently Oswego is Hobart's best win this year on the strength of schedule.
Wow.
So Hobart hasn't really, been tested much outside of their conference games, but it's just one of those where, if we're going to say Oswego's playing with house money, expectations are through the roof, whatever. Well, clearly they're not a team that's a front runner, and that's your best win. So Oswego's mightily improved from then. So I like either of those teams to make it to the Frozen Four.
Well, and Oswego's got familiarity with Hobart, like you said. And, there was a post on X last night by Neutral Zone, who does some of the rankings there for draft classes or recruit classes. And they said that, last season Utica was the number one recruit class, and look what happened. And then this season they had Oswego at number one. So, only good things just keep building up and building up. And Chris, I think you're right. I think that familiarity with Hobart's going to help if, Oswego does win this game against Trine. They'll be going to your favorite rink in the country. So,
I mean, if you like that, you like it. It's just one of those you can't. I like it for what it is. It's
right.
Just
right.
You can't then complain that you can't host a Frozen Four. Like, they're two totally different things.
Right. Right.
If Curry comes out, is they pretty much have and said, look, it's not going to be the best student athlete experience. We're not going to host it. And plus, they didn't put a bid in. And then Hobart comes along and says, we'll do it. I'd rather have it at Curry. Like, it's,
right.
They're the one seed. At that point, okay, if they could host it, why can't Curry? Like, so it's just a matter of, it's not that I dislike the rink. It's just, I dislike that you're acting as if you're entitled to host it when you physically really can't.
Right.
Like,
I know. I just did that to fire you up.
Oh, I know. It's like, it's nothing against you. It's just, we hear it every year. Every year. It's like, well, why can't we host? Have you looked? Like, you play there every week. I mean, the away teams will vouch for it. They don't like going there.
Yeah.
The Elmira women had to put up a sheet because there wasn't enough room for the locker room a couple years ago when they played William Smith.
Wow.
Like, it's not. It is what it is. It's great if you like old school hockey and that, but you can't handle an event of that magnitude. You just can't. Like, it's nothing right. Personal. It's just you can't.
Yeah. Well, there it is right there. So, but I'll be meeting, I guess, on Saturday at a facility that can handle an event of that magnitude, because I know I'm going to be in Utica. I know Jordy's going to be there, and Chris, I believe you're coming down too.
I'll be there. Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, listen, we'll all get together and conjugate.
Hopefully, I'm there the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, right.
The video.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that or not. So, that's up to you. Or do you want to hold on to the surprise?
No, I kind of like put a post on like X a little bit. Yeah, we're gonna do.
So nobody knows.
We don't know the Final Four, and plus it's gonna be a way better. Like, I'd rather do that video than a Frozen Four. Plus, I don't even know if we're gonna be going there, and if we do, it's based on the rank and everything.
Right.
It's tough to always get the like angles and stuff. So I don't think we're going to get as lucky as we did with Endicott, where we had like 90% of the goals scored at our end, which was great.
Right.
I don't think that's going to happen again. So no, it's fun. We'll get a great video out of Utica and Norbert if that happens, and both coaching staffs will, at least from what I know, they'll participate and they'll make it good. So it'll be great. So hopefully that happens. I will be devastated if either Gustavus or Fitchburg win. No offense to either of them. I actually work with a guy who went to Gustavus, and played for him. So there you go. And Scott, my graphics guy, he went to Gustavus too. So nothing against them, but I want Norbert and Utica real bad.
So do we.
Yep. Well, but you might want Gustavus.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, but, anyways, but no, those full 60 videos, man, they're awesome. We love it every time you put them out, and you can check them out on YouTube, because I'm telling you, you will not be disappointed by those videos. They're so much fun. And guys, thank you for coming on to talk about this. Chris, of course, you're all over Instagram. You're all over X. I mean, you're everywhere, man. And keep up the great work, because you are the heartbeat of D3 hockey.
Well, I think you play well too, but I enjoy it. It's fun. I'm glad, honestly, the year's coming to an end. I'm kind of getting burnt out here, but it's been fun.
Well, it must be something about that nice weather coming too, because we want to go golf and all that too. But at any rate, guys, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. And thank you for watching, and best of luck to all our teams in the tournaments this weekend. And we will see you next time on the Central New York Hockey Report podcast.